The 102nd edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
It's not about you. It's about that name on the front of your jersey.
And ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Mark, and he scores. Pushes in here, David. 8 seconds. David trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Off of the shot. Good. Off the rim. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good. 63-62. 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Fred Brown looking. Oh, way to Worthy. Worthy 5. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship.
Rebounded by Weber. Michigan out of timeout. Weber front court. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short. Rebounded. There. It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. How about them Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
That's it! Make room for 2017. The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
That's what it's all about right there. That's on the floor. That's on your shirt. That's in your heart. That's why we're all here.
This is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe.
Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services, and today Carolina faces Pittsburgh for the second time on Saturday. That's what we're going to be previewing on today's episode of the podcast. And Anthony, we discussed when we looked at the Pittsburgh game the first time and the Clemson game last Saturday that if there ever was a game for Carolina that felt like a must-win in January, those were it. We all know the story. Carolina blew a 14-point lead to Pittsburgh at home, and then they turned around and blew a 10-point lead at home to Clemson following that. And now they sit 8-8. They are 1-4 in ACC play. And if there's any chance to turning this thing around and getting back or getting into the NCAA tournament, they've got to find a way to win at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you're right. It starts tonight, and there's some interesting storylines that I know we're going to be talking about that could kind of change the direction in which this team is going. But really, I mean, at this point, we talked a lot so far on this show about snowballing throughout the year, and right now, that is exactly what's happening with these losses. We talked about before they started that little stretch that they just went through of 3 straight losses. I mean, if you go 3-0, you're sitting in a really good spot. 2-1, still in it, but the team goes 0-3, and now it's leading to the point where you're pretty much going to have to win about 75% of your remaining games if you want to make the NCAA tournament. It's a tough task, and this team has to be ready for it. And it starts in a game against a team that you had a real good opportunity to beat, that you were in position to beat in the first half. You were playing well, and they just found a way to really take over the game. You've got to prevent that from happening in this one and hopefully get yourself back on track and at least make yourself competitive to give you a chance to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I've thought all along, really, once this team kind of was starting its downward spiral, if they could go 10-10 in ACC play, that would probably be good enough to get them in the field this year with as weak as the bubble is going to be. Right now, that means they'd have to go 9-6 down the stretch to do that. And so one of the big things that really killed Carolina in the home loss to Pittsburgh was their inability to contain the dribble penetration of Trey McGowan and Xavier Johnson. Both are young sophomore guys. And those are guys that I think if they stick around and they're 4-year dudes, when they're seniors, Pittsburgh's going to be a problem in this conference. And what it caused was McGowan and Xavier Johnson would drive and then kick to I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. A guy that was a 22% three-point shooter entering the ball game, hit 4 straight threes that really turned the the Tide in the second half, and it's been something that Carolina's been exposed in the ACC play is their inability to contain the dribble. We saw it last year, but they were able to correct it. This year, not so much the same. Are you confident that they can, maybe it was because you're without Anthony Harris and without Jeremiah Francis in the Clemson game, that part of the aspect's going to be better, or is this just a part of the team for Carolina that that's a weakness and there's no fixing that?
I mean, it's a really interesting question, and I mean, it's hard to say that you really have confidence at this point, and that's not really just trying to rail on the guys. It's just right now, it's hard to say that this team really has you feeling that they're going to be able to correct a lot of the mistakes. It's just, are they going to be able to kind of work against the mistakes and find a way to put up the points that are necessary to win games? I think that, look, there's got to be a better focus on taking away the lane, because it wasn't only a problem against Pittsburgh. It was a problem against both Georgia Tech and Clemson. You made it way too easy for their guards to get inside on you. And, that's caused a lot of issues for your big men who aren't able to stay in the positions that they would like because they have to come down and try to help take away that dribble drive. So I think, that's going to be one of the keys for Carolina. And Pittsburgh was able to exploit Carolina in a little bit of a different way than the other two were, as you mentioned, with those outside threes, where that was pretty much the shots they were taking late in the game, and every single time they were looking at them, they were going down. So Carolina really just, I know that this team has had offensive struggles, and that's really been the focus, but we talked about it. It doesn't seem like, the shooting issues, they're really that correctable. It's really just that this team cannot shoot the basketball that well. They need to step up on the defensive end if this team is going to find a way to win games, because especially in the second half, in all three of those games that they have, in this losing streak, it has not looked pretty. So this team really needs to lock it down against Pittsburgh, and if they do that, I think they're going to have a good chance, and they should have an opportunity to do that without having to really come out and put up a phenomenal performance against Pittsburgh, because it's not like Pittsburgh is this great shooting team. All three of these teams that we just lost to came in shooting just a little over 40%. It's not like these teams are lights out shooting teams. It's just we've been making it so easy. If we make it a little more tough on them to score inside, I think we're going to have a chance.
Yeah, I think for Roy Williams, when he was getting this team prepared for this game, and you have a week loss or a week off from the Clemson debacle to today, or the game against Pittsburgh. I think with this particular team, you take the first 38 minutes of the game film, and that's what you focus on, because the last thing they need is you to show the 2 minutes where they completely choked and then the 5-minute overtime session, because that would derail any confidence that they have left. Some other teams, maybe that 2017 team, the 09, like your championship teams, and maybe those teams with Harrison Barnes and Tyler Zeller and those guys, you could probably focus on those 7 minutes because they're going to respond in a positive way. You don't get the same feeling with these guys. And I think it's something you look at the first 38 minutes against Clemson. They played probably their best basketball since the Oregon game to date in that game. You look at the first 30 or so minutes of the Pittsburgh game. It wasn't pretty, but they were playing well enough to not only be in the lead in the game, but they had a firm grasp of the ball game. And you've got to find a way to get those to 40 minutes. I think one of the big storylines coming into this game is we don't know the status of Jeremiah Francis, but you feel like a week off, he should be ready to go from the knee soreness. Brandon Robinson, of course, was involved in the accident over the weekend, but appears to be able to play. So Carolina's going to be healthy in that regard. But there's also this chance that Cole Anthony may be able to go. He hinted at on Instagram where he's in a picture with all the guys and was like, I'm ready to be back on the court with my brothers, that kind of thing. And I think that if he comes back, or I guess the question is this, if he comes back, what does that change for Carolina moving forward? Do you have a chance, or are you still just stuck in it's an uphill climb and he's not good enough to lift them over the top?
Well, it's the ultimate question right now. And, I mean, we've been talking about this kind of on and off here the last couple of days since we had the response to the Tar Heel update post on Instagram where Cole responded and said he would be back soon. It's really one of those things where you just kind of wonder if not only will it be the fact that his talent is back on the floor, but also the fact that you just get a sense of hope for this team. And, you know, I think if he's able to play tonight, that would be just huge. You're going from, you know, having just 8 guys dressed, you know, that are scholarship guys dressed against Clemson to having 10 guys, including a point guard that is seen by many as potentially the number 1 pick in the draft, at least the number 1 point guard in the draft. And, you know, I think that when you look at Cole Anthony, you know, you noticed at the end of, you know, his first 9 games that he played this year before the injury, you know, he was kind of struggling a little bit, didn't look like that same guy that we saw the first 3 games of the year. Maybe the injury, I'm not going to say the injury is a good thing because, yeah, we have really struggled with him off the floor, but it might give him a chance to sort of reset, gain a little confidence back. And I think at this point, you know, one of the other things that you got to kind of look at and say, you kind of wonder, you know, what kind of effect that has. You know, at this point, he's got to know that he's the guy that is pretty much their last hope. So, you know, is he going to take that and run with that as a leader of the team? I think he does. And I'm going to be interested when he does return, whether that's in this game against Pittsburgh, whether it's, you know, a couple of days, you know, a couple of games down the line, whatever that is, you know, is he going to come out and really be playing with that sort of that mindset that we were kind of hoping to see from him early in the year, which is not only to be aggressive attacking the rim, but, you know, really just kind of form into that leader that right now this team just lacks on the floor. It's going to be really interesting to see. But, I mean, I do caution people just a little bit. While I do think that he's definitely going to be a big help, you can't go in thinking, okay, he's back. Now this team should be, you know, they should be winning every single game. This team should be looking perfect. It's not going to happen. I mean, that's just part of it. The rest of the team is not all of a sudden going to, you know, be able to knock down every shot they look at or be able to hold teams to, you know, 20% shooting in games, which is severely unrealistic. I don't know why I picked that number. But, you know, what I'm saying is that he will definitely help. He should give you some hope. But at the same time, don't let expectations get blown out of the water and all of a sudden think, okay, this is a team that should be competing to win the ACC. That's just, as of right now, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the big thing that it does, when in fact he does return, is it gives Carolina another primary ball handler, which you really don't have outside of Jeremiah Francis. Leaky Black ran the point against Clemson, was okay, but okay is not going to win you games in the ACC. It gives you a guy that's not going to be afraid to shoot the ball, and when the situation demands that you got to go make a play, because he showed the willingness to take tough shots and has the ability to make tough shots. So he brings a level of toughness. I also think his return will open up some chances. We've seen Brandon Robinson, you know, have flurries where he's being a guy that can score the ball at a pretty good rate for Carolina, had a career best 27 in the loss to Clemson. You've also seen Garrison Brooks emerge on the offensive end, which I think is something that nobody expected when we were watching him as a freshman 2 years ago, that he would blossom into a guy that now we know he can give us 18 points and 8 rebounds a night. And when he was a young guy, we just thought, well, he's going to rebound the ball, play good defense, and that's going to be okay. Well, now he's a guy that we're running offense through. And I think Anthony's return will open up the offense for some of, you know, for Robinson and for Brooks, which Carolina desperately needs, because you can see teams just on the perimeter bogged down on Robinson when the ball goes into the post. Brooks is immediately getting double teamed in certain situations. So I think it'll open Carolina's offense up a little bit. It's also going to take a lot of pressure off Jeremiah Francis. He can slide back into the role of not having to run the team for 30 minutes, lessen some of his minutes, some of his workload. So I think there's a lot of factors that come into his return. in a positive way. And I think this for Carolina right now, you're searching for something positive. You got to find something to feel good about yourself when you go into the practice gym or you walk into a gym to go play on game day. And it's something that, right now we don't know, which is all speculation, but we do know at some point he is going to return. As for focusing back on this pitch